Hi, sweeties. How are you doing? Welcome to Naya. Same as Naya. Thank you so much for the support. Hope you all are doing great. And I am going to say a very big shout out to this beautiful sister because she really came correct. Everything she said is 100%. And she was asking, why is it that a Black community is over policed? Not just only Black community and other communities that are not white. Why are they over policed? But I am talking about my own people because our community is over policed. Why is it that you all are always in Black neighborhood, right? Looking for or catching Black people over petty things that you all will never catch your people for doing. And that reminds me, I saw a video today. I decided not to even because a video of a judge, same judge, a Black man and a white man committed almost the same crime. Black man 21 years, white boy 19 years. And to my greatest surprise, the Black boy got how many years in prison? And the white boy got 2 years public community service. Almost the same crime, just the same judge, the same court, different skin color, and the other one. That tells you how bad these people have treated my own people and how they have tried so hard to make sure that as much as we try to rise, they try as much as they can to bring us down. And to my great, the reality is that I haven't even seen Black people being violent or doing something. The only thing that they've been asking you all for is just to dismantle that system that has been oppressing my people. Now let me tell you something. Some people are benefiting from segregation. You know what? Let's get into this video.
I watch true crime just as much as any other girl, but let's talk about a real mystery. Why do police ignore serial killers who targeted Black and brown communities? Law enforcement has no problem harassing us over traffic stops, locking us up for petty crimes, or treating us like threats. But when killers were hunting us down, they didn't see a pattern. Let's get into it. Let's be real, we all know policing was never about keeping us safe. Historically, cops were slave patrol, strike breakers, and enforcers of segregation. When we say the system is broken, no, it's not broken. It's working exactly how it was designed. And look at how they treat us today. Over police for small crimes, the war on drugs, stop and frisk, underprotected when we're actually in danger. Black and brown murders, it's probably gang related, right? But when white women went missing, the FBI, the media, the local police, they were all on it instantly. Meanwhile, our people were disappearing, and the cops barely batted an eye. Why? It's because they never saw us as worth protecting. Do you want to know why so many serial killers hunted Black and brown people? Because they knew they could. The police weren't looking, and the media didn't care. The victims were poor, sex workers, addicts, or just Black and brown. And that meant law enforcement was not rushing to solve that case. Samuel Little, 93 unalivings. He targeted Black women for 4 decades because cops ignored their disappearances. The Grim Sleeper, he unalived Black women in LA for 25 years before anybody took it seriously. And the Atlanta child unalivings, 28 Black children and young men unalived. And police dragged their feet until the public forced them to do something. Imagine if 28 white kids went missing. It would be a national emergency. But for Black families, they had to beg the police to even pretend to care. You ever notice how when people talk about serial unalivers, it's always Ted Bundy, Jeffrey Dahmer, and John Wayne Gacy? Like, white men had a monopoly on unalivings. But guess what? Serial unalivers exist in every race. The reason we only hear about white ones? Because those were the only stories that the media wanted to tell. Black and brown victims didn't make headlines. And when serial unalivers from our own communities did pop up, they were either ignored or downplayed. Chester Turner, 15 plus unalivings, barely covered. Cleophas Prince Jr., unalived 6 white women, almost no media attention. Derek Todd Lee. It took years for the police to even consider him because they thought the serial unaliver just had to be white. Meanwhile, Netflix is out here making documentaries and dramas about the same 10 white dudes. Like we haven't already heard their stories a million times. No shade to the victims. If a white woman goes missing, the entire country will know about it. But when Black and Indigenous women disappear, silence. That's called missing white woman syndrome. It affects more than just media coverage. It affects how fast police respond, how many resources they use, and whether the case gets solved at all. Take Gabby Petito. Her case got wall-to-wall coverage. But at the same time, Dozens of Indigenous women were missing in the same region, and no one said a word. And this is nothing new, it's been happening for decades. Let's be clear, law enforcement didn't ignore serial unalivers in our communities by accident. They ignored them because they never saw us as people worth protecting. They could criminalize us, they can over-police us, lock us up for nonviolent crimes. But when Black and brown people were being unalived, suddenly they were understaffed. Suddenly they didn't see a pattern. So no, serial unalivers were not just white men who targeted white women. They were strategic hunters who picked their victims based on who society wouldn't fight for. And unfortunately, they were right. Imagine being a cop, but not being able to arrest white people. Imagine risking your life to protect your community, but your own government treats you like you don't exist. That's exactly what happened in Miami when they created the first all-Black police precinct in 1944. And trust me, it wasn't the win that they try to make it seem like. Let's get into it. It was the 1940s, and Miami is segregated as hell. Black neighborhoods are overpoliced, underprotected, and white cops are basically the Klan in uniform when it comes to dealing with Black people. So instead of addressing the racism within the police precinct, Miami came up with what they thought was a solution, creating a separate but equal Black police force. Separate and equal. Where we've heard that before. Now, on paper, this sounds like progress, right? More Black cops meant better protection for Black neighborhoods, in theory. But here's where the real BS kicks in. Black officers could only patrol Black areas. And get this, they weren't even allowed to arrest white people. Imagine seeing a crime happening. You're trained, badged, and ready to do your job. But you gotta call a white officer because your authority doesn't apply to them. That's how Miami played Black officers. They gave them the job, but not the power. These officers weren't just limited as to where they could work. They also weren't respected by their own department. They didn't get the same equipment, same pay, or same treatment as their white counterparts. Even when they tried to make actual changes in the community, they were blocked. What did they do? They built their own. The Black precinct was not just a police station. It became a cultural hub. Officers held community meetings, mentored kids, and actually protected their neighborhoods. Because let's be real, nobody was looking out for us but us. Then came the civil rights movement, and with it, the pressure to integrate Miami's police force. But instead of giving Black officers equal status, the city just shut down the precinct in 1963. That's right, instead of truly integrating and uplifting their officers, they got rid of the entire operation. A whole institution built to serve Black people. Gone. And just like that, Miami's Black community lost one of the only police forces that actually cared about them. Was the Black police precinct a win? Yes and no. It gave Black officers a foot in the door, but only on white people's terms. It let them serve, but never truly hold power. And when it came to actually create an equal system, they shut it down. Miami loves to call this precinct a historic landmark, but let's be real. It's a reminder that America will keep giving Black people just enough to keep us quiet, but never enough to give us real power. Imagine using every ounce of energy that you have left to get yourself to the emergency room because you have no control over your body. You can't sit down comfortably. You can't lay down comfortably. You can't sit up comfortably. And then when you get to the hospital, you get yelled at because you can't lay down for an MRI. You get yelled at. You get ignored. You get told that you're not in pain. You get left to suffer alone because they wouldn't allow your partner in the room with you. That's just one instance of what it's like for Black women when we try to seek medical attention. Historically, we've had figures like J. Marion Sims. He was often called father of gynecology. He conducted experiments on enslaved Black women without anesthesia, operating under the false belief that they felt less pain. This set a precedent for racial bias in medicine. Today, these biases persist. Black women are 3 times more likely to die from pregnancy complications than white women. Factors include variations in the quality of healthcare, underlying chronic conditions, structural racism, and implicit bias. Implicit biases led to Black women's pain being underestimated, resulting in delayed or inadequate treatment. This isn't just history. It's happening now. It happened to me. Access to care is another barrier. Nearly 1 in 8 Black women aged 19 to 64 lacks health insurance, limiting preventative care and treatment options. These disparities aren't just statistics. They represent lives affected by systemic racism in healthcare. How do we fix this? How do we fix this? They reflect a profound sense of isolation. felt by many Black women in our healthcare system. How are we supposed to feel safe in a system that was never meant for us to feel safe in? We always talk about the evils of segregation, but let's talk about the money, because somebody was getting paid to keep us separated. And no, it wasn't just racist politicians. Let's talk about the less obvious profiteers who cashed in big time. You ever wonder why Black neighborhoods pay higher insurance rates to this day? That's because companies like State Farm and Allstate used to just straight up charge Black homeowners for the same coverage. If they even offered it at all, they justified it by saying Black areas were high risk, when in reality, they were just highly racist. And guess what? Some of these discriminatory practices still affect Black homeowners today through risk assessments that just happen to favor white areas. Convenient, right? You ever heard of the company Pullman Co.? They made luxury train cars in the late 1800s and early 1900s. And guess what? They built separate but equal train cars because segregation was literally a business. Black passengers had to sit in second-rate cars, but they still had to pay full price. The same thing happened with public buses. Black folks were forced to sit in the back, but their fares still lined the pockets of these companies. And when we finally said enough with the Montgomery bus boycott, those companies lost millions. Segregation wasn't just a social structure, it was an economic model. You ever wonder why history books in school rarely mention things like Tulsa's Black Wall Street or how bad segregation really was? That's because textbook companies, especially McGraw-Hill and Pearson, have a long history of editing out the worst parts of American racism to protect white feelings. And who buys their books? Public schools. Meaning, they've been making billions off of feeding watered down, whitewashed history to generations of kids, myself included. And the best part? They still do it today. Just look at Florida. See, segregation wasn't just about keeping us apart. It was a whole business model. Corporations made billions off of our oppression, and some still do. And that's why they don't like us asking questions. Because when you follow the money, you find the truth.
This is all I got from this video, and a very big shout out to this beautiful sister. She set them the way it is. I mean, there is nothing as beautiful as, I mean, a vibrant connect corridor. I mean, she is really good. I am going to say this. There is nothing she didn't say. I mean, everything she said is 10 over 10. It's something that you can also make your research and find out that she said what she said, right? The reality is that keeping us separate, like the word segregation is also some people's money making machine, right? Because they have to make money. Well, when they make money, now let me make this thing clear. There has never been, I mean, like these people always look for a way to make money off black people, and they have been making money with black people from the beginning to this very moment. It's just that the way black people are now woke, they are also being very careful because they know how vocal at this point in time black people are. But if it's ripping off, they have ripped my people off, starting from the beginning to this very moment. Now you all still remember, okay. I remember I posted a video about segregation and how some people were like, because the way things are going, like, some people were like, I think we are better off on our own, which I do not blame anybody saying that. Why? Because, like, there are some things you will see, you definitely will just do not want to mix up. You just want to stay on your own. During that period, buses and all that, like schools, fountain, even to drink water. That is to tell you how these people thought. I mean, like, I don't know how they thought they could keep us down from the beginning to this very moment. Man, I won't lie to you. Our ancestors fought really tooth and nail. For those that know what I am saying, for whatever you are today, for whatever you are enjoying at this point in time, I want you to know that there are some people fought with the last drop of their body, the blood to get you here, their sweat and everything to get you where you are today. And to some migrants who migrated and do not respect people that went through it all in this country, I want you to know that you are here and you are able to migrate because some people suffered it all. Why am I saying some people suffered it all? Some people were they really the slave for you to be a better person. Some people fought, died for you to be a better person. That's why each day you wake up, you have to try as much as you can to make your life meaningful and to make the best out of your community. Why? Because there were people that made sure that they straighten the road for you. Each time I see some migrants that probably migrated and they are doing better or they are doing okay for themselves, talk ill about my community, about my people. What I tell them is, why didn't your fathers or your parents or whoever that brought you there, why did they not migrate during slavery or after slavery? So each time you want to open your mouth and talk ill about my own people, I want you to know that you all are standing on a free train or enjoying a free ride because some people suffered it for you to be there and enjoy it. So do not uh, cut the hand that feed you. Make sure you give them their accolades. Make sure you give them their flowers because they deserve it. Now let's talk about over policing and the brutality that happens in Black community. You all, like she said, that back then, right, Black cops could not arrest their own people. Even if you are seeing crime happen, you have to call a white cop to come and do it. That is to tell you how they wanted the power to be from the onset. And as time goes on, everything is shifting and they are becoming madder. Like these people might actually make us the minority and all that. You all will experience some certain things in the end. You know why I knew that a majority of them knew that they are like, that it is their world according to them. But no, we are the bullet point. It is our world. I remember a video that I posted here maybe 2 years ago, if I am not mistaken. A woman that was, she did something and she was apprehended. And then she was screaming, "Why are you treating me like a minority?" So I was like, oh, you know what a minority means. So you know that some people are being treated poorly, but you all open your mouth all the time to tell my people to be grateful that they were brought here, right? You all have to be grateful that you are brought here, the land of the living, everything, the land where the dream blossoms and the land where everything is at. You are supposed to be happy. You are not supposed to be complaining. You are supposed to pick up yourself and make, which they have been doing all these years. But you are gaslighting them, not to talk about all the things that you all have done to them till this very moment. Not to talk about the system you all mounted that has been oppressing them, that has not been dismantled. Not to talk about how they are being. Why have you people not paid reparations? Or is the reparations not part of the deal? You all have to cut the check too, as soon as possible. I am gonna draw the cut in here, but a very big shout out to this beautiful sister. She came correct. Bye for now.